Okay, I think we're all ready to go. I'm sorry about the late start here, guys. I just want to check you guys can hear me and see me all right there. My apologies for the issues. Restream decided not to post it on YouTube for some stupid reason. It loaded up fine on Twitch, but for whatever reason, it wouldn't do it on YouTube. And then I had to basically created another stream. So I literally had, and whenever it does that, it causes me an absolute headache. What's even more infuriating is when I post it already all over social media, it takes them to the wrong live stream. So that's very annoying indeed. So yeah, thanks Restream. I mean, I don't pay for it, but it'd be nice if it wasn't fussing about. So we got a lot to cover today. Hello everyone and welcome to Reganelite's Watch Along, episode 90 we got here. Here on Wednesday the 11th of March 2026 here. We got roughly about 9 people in the chat currently. Well, hopefully that number will start to rise as we got a lot to cover. We're going to be obviously covering the bits around Peter Mandelson, of course. Definitely we'll be talking about that. I wanted to share, if we have time later on, the speech by the MP who shares her harrowing account of a rape in jury trial Commons debate. I've never actually shared that clip, so I might share, if we get time, I'll share that with you guys as well. Going to be covering quite a lot, a bit more. We've got some extra clips on Peter Mandelson, and I do have quite a few on the Iran war as well. Also got 1 or 2 clips from in America. There's also some criticism of where Nigel Farage and Kemi Bagnott to look like absolute dumbasses as well. Got some really hypocrisy clips from them if we get a chance. And Donald Trump was talking to the media today. I got a couple of them as well there. So that's so we'll go about an hour and a half. So we'll see how we do. But yeah, we are 10 episodes away from reaching 100 episodes of this series. We reached 100, I think, of the global news, and we kind of stopped there just because of the couldn't really have a time slot for it. But maybe one day I will bring it back in the future there. Hold on a second. Let me just make sure the Twitch stream is viewed so I can see it there as well. So good evening, Ellie. Good to see you there. Diane Knox, Stephen Banker, Jenny, Jao, good to see you there. Indie Duck, Mel, good to see you all. Hope you guys are all doing well. Yeah. So for whatever reason, Twitch Restream did not want to launch the YouTube for some reason, which was very, very weird indeed. Yeah, I need this as well. This is going to be needed for this live stream here. So which one should I start off with? I think this one should be more. I think we should start off with this one more because of the ramifications. Let me just make sure. Right, let's get started. So the first one I want to show you guys here. It is 8 minutes long. However, it is very, very important. Why is it like that? Let me just. I'm gonna have to shorten zoom myself. For some reason, oh dear, I've got to play about with this. Let me just zoom myself. Sorry, I have to edit myself there. Sorry. Right, so the government has published the first tranche of Mandelson files. Now we're going to have a read in from Sky News' perspective. It is about 8 minutes long, but I do think it's worth us watching this together. Bear in mind, it's also worth citing before we go into this as well, is that the government haven't released everything. Everything that they have released is with the approval of the Metropolitan Police. We should also make it very clear that there is still an ongoing case against Peter Mandelson that still needs to be done by the police. So that context really does matter. So we have to bear that in mind as well when we're discussing this. But we can obviously discuss what has been published here. So there's quite a lot here to come through. So let's hear from Sam Coates of Sky News from their perspective here on what has been released here.
Just bear with me for a minute or so as I take you through what Keir Starmer was told about the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Here it starts. A 2019 report commissioned by JP Morgan found that Epstein appeared to maintain a particularly close relationship with Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, and Lord Peter Mandelson, a senior member of the British government. So here we have it on the face of the documents. Keir Starmer absolutely told up front that he had a close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
So we already knew this, but the fact that this kind of just reinforces what we already knew, that Keir Starmer knew that he had a close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and that the revelations about Jeffrey Epstein, but still had this put in front of him, and yet this was dismissed, as was Morgan McSweeney dismissing it, and still went ahead with appointing him as US ambassador, which again is incredibly embarrassing, really embarrassing. Really questions the judgment of the Prime Minister, and rightfully so there. Mandy, good evening to you. Scott Hayes. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone in the chat. I think Jenny, if I didn't say hello to you there, good evening to you as well. Hope you are doing well.
The report cited Epstein's personal records, which showed contact beginning in 2002 and continuing throughout the 2000s. Now, you'll note that a lot of the controversy is whether or not Keir Starmer knew, which we think he did, that Peter Mandelson maintained a close relationship after Jeffrey Epstein's conviction for sex trafficking. So look at the next bit. After Epstein was first convicted of procuring an underage girl in 2008, their relationship continued, across this, 2009 to 2011.
So the Prime Minister was fully aware that despite the fact that Epstein was convicted of procuring an underage girl in 2008, he was fully aware that the relationship between Lord Mandelson and Epstein continued after that. Never mind the fact that he was aware of the relationship in the 2019 report. He was aware. Again, this just reinforces and questions the judgment of the Prime Minister here. Now, yes, I said at the time a lot of this is on Morgan McSweeney because he was the one who was influencing and pushing Keir Starmer in that direction. I definitely stand by that. But at the end of the day, as we made very clear very, very many times, Prime Minister is ultimately the one who makes the choice at the end of the day here. Sarah Davis and Billy Kershaw, good to see you both. Hope you are doing well there as well.
Beginning when Lord Mandelson was business minister and continuing after the end of the Labour government, Mandelson reportedly stayed in Epstein's house while he was in jail in 2009. There you have it. There you have it, in black and white. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, warned in the clearest possible terms that Peter Mandelson maintained his relationship after the conviction, and that relationship was close. He was accepting, there were reports that he was accepting hospitality. There is no escape from this. Keir Starmer knew a lot at the point in December 2024 when he appointed Peter Mandelson.
There's really not, I really can't stress just how bad this is for Keir Starmer. And I really thought Keir Starmer was a goner, when he admitted that the dispatch box that he knew. He admitted that the dispatch box that he knew. And it was just to me, it's how can you stay in your position knowing what you knew? How can you have appointed him knowing what you've known? And this just reinforces it even more. It's just... And you have to, you have to question. It really isn't just about, it's not just about Peter Mandelson, guys. It's not just about the relationship he had with Jeffrey Epstein. It's not just about these reports, right? It's about the entire people. It's about the cabinet around him. It's about the people who are in his inner circle. Because even his inner circle would have known this. They knew this, and they still pushed for it. They still went ahead with it. This is the most damning thing of it all.
Let's keep going. It says in 2014, Mandelson agreed to be a founding citizen of the Ocean Conservation Group founded by Ghislaine Maxwell and funded by Epstein. So another post-conviction, post-jailing link that was brought to the Prime Minister's attention. On reporting of the JP Morgan report, Lord Mandelson's spokesman said, Lord Mandelson very much regrets, so this is the response of Lord Mandelson to all of this. Lord Mandelson very much regrets having ever been introduced to Epstein. This connection had been a matter of public record for some time. He never had any form of professional or business relationship with Epstein in any form. And then it goes on to talk about some of the official statements, including that from the Labour Party. It also says The Cabinet Office holds official records that are likely to be released by the National Archives early next year, so that would have been 2025 last year, which relate to Tony Blair meeting with Epstein that was facilitated by Mandelson. So I'm sure there'll be some more focus on that. And then in glorious civil servant understatement, it simply says, in conclusion to all of that, to note, general reputational risk. The report.
To pause there, because there's so much to go through.
There certainly is.
Fascinating detail that you're giving us here. We're going to go back to Beth for a couple of minutes just to reflect on what we've just heard there, because Sam spelled out the general concerns that the Cabinet Office were aware of, speaking arrangements, his relationship with Global Counsel, roles in the financial service, twice resigned from Labour. But the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and as Sam said, this is really clear. This is something that the Prime Minister has intimated that he wasn't aware of, but this is clear in black and white. The Prime Minister had been warned in this Cabinet Office document about Jeffrey Epstein's.
I want to just, I don't really want to take, I mean, we could listen to Beth Rigby's position. I don't know if we're going to go back to Sam Coates on there, but there is something there that's just before they switched away that I think, yeah, I'm sure you guys saw as well as I saw there. Where is it? Yeah, you see what I see at the bottom there. Has suggested using Nigel Farage to better UK connections with the Trump administration. Mandelson quoted as saying, Nigel Farage, contrary to UKG policy, you can't ignore him. He's an elected member of parliament. He's a public figure. He's a bridgehead, both to President Trump and to Elon Musk and others. The national interest is served in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. This is Peter Mandelson to here that he recommended to the Prime Minister and to the government in his position here. Nigel Farage. And it's just absolutely insane. It really, really is there. So let's hear from the government's perspective on this, and let's hear how they tried to spin this, guys, because surely they have a very good excuse for spinning this, right? So this is from Politics Show. It's about 13 minutes long because we're also going to hear response from MPs as well. And from this here, MPs are demanding answers from the government as the Mandelson files are finally released.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it is important to recognise the strength of feeling on all sides of the House, my own included, of the disgust and horror at the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson maintained with Jeffrey Epstein despite his criminal conviction for abusing a vulnerable young girl, including encouraging Jeffrey Epstein to then fight that conviction. Jeffrey Epstein was a despicable criminal who committed the most horrifying and disgusting crimes that destroyed the lives of countless women and girls. What he did is, of course, unforgivable, and his victims, I know, will be in the thoughts and prayers of all members across this House as we debate these issues today. Those victims will always be our first priority, and Peter Mandelson's behaviour was an insult to them and their suffering. And can I say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I am therefore sorry that these events leave those victims with no choice but to relive their horrors with still too little justice being served. On today's release, the documents specifically relate to the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as Ambassador to the United States and the discussions that subsequently led to his dismissal. These include the Cabinet Office due diligence report, which was passed to number 10 prior to Peter Mandelson's appointment. Information provided to my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, regarding whether full due process was followed during Peter Mandelson's appointment.
Short answer, it was not. Based on clips and records that I have seen, he was fast-tracked. He was fast-tracked. And oh, by the way, did you know in order for him to have become ambassador, he needed to get approval from the king as well. So he also got approval from the king as well to get it. Just to add more to this, guys. The documents showed that he was being pushed through. He was not following the same procedures as everyone else when it came to his appointment. He was getting literally fast-tracked. Documents prove that.
papers relating to Peter Mandelson's appointment as His Majesty's Ambassador to the United States, and minutes of meetings relating to the decision to appoint him, and details of the severance payments made to Peter Mandelson after the Prime Minister instructed he be withdrawn as Ambassador, thereby terminating his employment by the civil service. Whilst the documents point to public reports of an ongoing relationship between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein, the advice did not expose the depth and extent of their relationship, which only became apparent after the release of further files by Bloomberg and then the United States Department for Justice.
Dude, we've just seen the information. Like, you can't spin this. You cannot spin this. Like, Darren, I know, yeah, I know Keir's your buddy, but you can't spin this. Like, you just cannot. You can't spin this.
After the Prime Minister reviewed the Cabinet Office due diligence that noted public reporting on Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, questions were put to Peter Mandelson by advisers in number 10, as Right Honourable and Honourable members can see referred to on pages 8 and 94 of the bundle, and Peter Mandelson responded. These are matters that are currently the subject of an ongoing police investigation, and we will publish this document when the investigation allows. I'm sure that Right Honourable and Honourable members across the House will also read in these documents with interest how Peter Mandelson conducted himself after his withdrawal as Ambassador. As the documents show regarding his severance payment,
this is going to shock you.
Peter Mandelson initially requested a sum that was substantially larger than the final payment. Not just 2 or even 3 times, but more than 6 times the final amount.
£500,000. He wanted, Peter Mandelson, when he was sacked, right, when he was forced out, he wanted his full contract that he was supposed to fulfill as role of US Ambassador. He wanted that full £500,000. He demanded that from the government when he was sacked. Just bear that in mind, all right? £500,000. That's what he demanded from the government. That's not what he got, though.
Despite the fact that he was withdrawn from Washington because he had lost the confidence of the Prime Minister. The government obviously found that to be inappropriate and unacceptable. The settlement that was agreed was to avoid even higher further costs involving a drawn-out legal claim at the Employment Tribunal, given Peter Mandelson's employment as a civil servant rather than a minister. The House will know that ministers can be dismissed without recourse to the Employment Tribunal. Civil servants are treated differently.
Now, the payout that Peter Mandelson got was £75,000 by the government when he was basically sacked. The government paid him off 75 grand. Now, I would, just like each and every one of you in the chat, would like nothing more for him to get not a single bloody penny for this role, as much as it. And it is something that really does infuriate me, because it spins back to the same question of, why did you appoint him in the first place? So not only was so much time and effort made to put a man who was not suitable for that role as US Ambassador, but you also wasted a shit ton of money on a contract that you couldn't fulfill for him, an extraordinary contract, and you paid out 75 grand to the guy to get rid of him because of the bad publicity, because of his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. Despite the fact that you knew he was connected deeply to Jeffrey Epstein, as we literally saw from the pieces from Sam Coates' Sky News piece. Despite all that, just enough to charter a private jet back to London, says Mr. E. Good to see you there, Mr. E. And anybody else lurking in the chats.
Clearly, Peter Mandelson's associations bring a real stench to the appointment processes, but I want to know about the business associations and the way that they are scrutinised within the process, because clearly we know that Peter Mandelson's PR company, Global Counsel, had strong associations, a client in fact, Palantir, who has won lucrative contracts from successive governments. I want to understand if the papers demonstrate those associations and the associations that Peter Mandelson then brought into government.
As far as I'm aware from what I've read and seen, I haven't seen that yet. It's possible in some of those papers they may have been. We will get a full picture basically by tomorrow of it, because people are still skimming through some of the documents now. People are still coming through documents now. But yes, we know that Platinier is without a doubt linked to Mandelson and linked to all of this as well. And I have a video dropping, I think it's tomorrow, about Platinier's links to the Iran war as well.
My honourable friend will see from the documents being published today that those commercial interests were raised by the Cabinet Office and established processes were put in place where new members of the civil service have to remove those commercial interests before taking office. And there is some commentary in the bundle about the conversation with Peter Mandelson in advance of his appointment as Ambassador to the United States, specifically about that question. Having said all of that, part of the review that we are now taking forward is another look at the business appointment rules to make sure that the processes that were applied in these circumstances are robust enough in the situation in which we're discussing. And if we need to further strengthen them, we stand ready to do so.
Yeah, well, it's all well and good saying we're going to strengthen strengthen it all now. It's all well and good saying that, but the damage has already been done. Rosemary, good to see you there. I hope you are doing well.
If I listened to the Minister correctly, which I think I did, he said that his victims must be our first priority. Let's be clear, for the Prime Minister, they were not.
Yep.
Because on the 11th of the 12th, 2024, he received advice which says, and I state, Epstein was first convicted of procuring an underage girl in 2008. The following sentence says, Mandelson stayed in Epstein's house in June 2009. I repeat, the victims were not the Prime Minister's first priority.
Yep.
So that being the case, how can the Minister, with a straight face, stand at that dispatch box and say we must learn this hard lesson and end a culture which dismisses women's experiences when it was the Prime Minister who chose to ignore those experiences, ignore those facts, and appoint Peter Mandelson in the first place?
The honourable member will have heard from my, forgive me, the right honourable member will have heard from my statement that in response to the reported allegations that are listed in the Cabinet Office due diligence, these were, of course, at the time, allegations.
He knows he can't defend this. He knows he can't defend this. Like, literally, Stephen Flynn ripped him apart, ripped Keir Starmer apart, ripped the government apart. Like, there's just no quarrel to land on. You can't talk about the victims when the victims weren't even in the thought process whatsoever when you did this. Just didn't.
Questions were put to Peter Mandelson by Number 10 advisers. His responses to those questions are part of documents that we are not yet able to publish, but that we would have liked to have been able to publish today. Since then, the Prime Minister has made it very clear that Peter Mandelson lied to him. He regrets believing those lies, and if the depth and extent of that relationship, which nobody in this House understood until the Bloomberg publication of documents and the US Department of Justice.
No. You can't spin that. You can't spin that. You can't. We were aware of his relationship long before the Bloomberg report. We were aware. Keir Starmer was aware long before that. You can't spin this. He's trying to spin this, but you can't.
Justice disclosures, he would never have appointed him in the first place.
Eve Witherden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The release of documents outlining what was known about Mandelson's association with Epstein is welcome. Mandelson's avarice, his business connections and his malign influence within the Labour Party are simultaneously why he was made ambassador and why he was useful to Epstein. Does my right honourable friend agree that we should be seeking to distance ourselves from flawed democracies that are drifting towards authoritarianism, such as the United States, rather than using those associated with sex offenders in order to strengthen such relationships?
My honourable friend will know from the statements of the Prime Minister and the documents being published today that he regrets having ever appointed Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States, and that in our country we rightly respect the rules that are in place that need to be observed, that there must be clear consequences for people who breach them. And as I've said in earlier answers, that even in our country we have much further to go to tackle violence against women and girls and structural misogyny, and that we should all have a shared ambition for tackling that as quickly as possible.
Like, look, I want to believe Keir Starmer, and I want to believe Darren Jones here, but I just can't. The evidence is just so clear. I just don't see how you can justify this here. Of course, he's not answering the question. He can't answer the question. Joe. He's got no leg to stand on. And the thing is, here's the worst thing, right? They intentionally put this out after PMQs, which means you've got between now and next week before you can put these questions to the Prime Minister again. This was done with the intention of mitigating damage to the Prime Minister, minimising as much damage as possible to him, all under the cover of the Iraq War as well.
I find this faux outrage about Mandelson really astonishing. He was a man that was closely involved with the current Prime Minister, the leadership of the Labour Party, ever since Tony Blair, and very closely since 2020. They must have known his character. They must have known what he was like. In the documents that the government is now producing, will we know every piece of advice that was given to the Prime Minister by his officials and by the Foreign Office, and specifically, will there be a record of any verbal briefings given to the Prime Minister before he made this calamitous decision to send Mandelson to Washington? I think the public need to know why the Prime Minister, despite all the knowledge about Mandelson, felt the need to go ahead with this appointment.
Yep.
To answer the right honourable gentleman's question, the tranche of documents today that relate to the appointment and then the dismissal of Peter Mandelson as ambassador are inclusive of all of the documents held by government, bar those which have been held back by the Metropolitan Police for their criminal investigation. There are no other further documents that have not been published.
Hold in my hand the advice that was given to the Prime Minister before he made the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the USA. Reading this advice document, it's clear that the Prime Minister wouldn't have given the go-ahead for this individual, Peter Mandelson, to stand as a Labour candidate for Town Council, but instead he was elevated, despite what's in the document, despite what was known, to this most important of positions. There's a whole section entitled Relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The question that has to be asked is, how did it even get to the stage where the Prime Minister was interviewing Mandelson for this job and considering him for this job? The simple answer is political. It's because it suited the interests of a tiny faction in the Labour Party, funded by big business, who wanted Mandelson at the heart of things in order to shift a Labour government away from the agenda that a real Labour government should have. That's why Mandelson was popular with these people. That's why he was one of their favoured sons. And that's why, despite his despicable character, despite his greed and his avarice, he was put in this position despite what was known. Isn't that the case?
Well, he's obviously not going to agree with that position anyway, so there's no point listening to his argument case on it. But yeah, this was all about for the sake. This was also influence from businesses as well. Political credit scores. Richard Burnham is one of the few good Labour MPs left in that party. If there's anyone who could defect for the Greens from Labour, it's him.
House now knows he would never have appointed him in the first place.
This isn't just about technicalities, about lapses of judgment. This is about a wider, rotten political culture, a 30-year project where proximity to wealth and power isn't a means to an end, it is the end goal. That's what Peter Mandelson represented, and he wasn't just about him being the ambassador or selected to be ambassador. He was at the heart of the political project around number 10. That has to change. Does the government understand? Out there, this isn't just about one bad set of decisions. It's about a political culture that he represents and that is destroying party politics, mainstream party politics in this country. Do we get that? Do we understand that? Will we change?
I'm not even going to bother listening to his answer because you already know what his answer is, guys. But yeah, it's really infuriating to say the least there. Indeed, I'll make it clear that that video was obviously used by Politics Joe, and I just want to make sure that they get credit for that there as well, because that footage was from their accounts for reference there. Is Branson in a pickle? I'm not sure. Scratcher there. Spot on that, man. Yeah, Rich, he's one of the few good Labour MPs, as I said. Yeah. Billy Kershaw, the public perception is Mandelson had connections and someone thought he could use that. Yeah, that's definitely it there. Don't like agreeing with people I don't like the smell. Well, you know, there are times where I'm ended up agreeing with Piers Morgan, and I don't like agreeing with Piers Morgan because I don't like the guy. But at the same time, you know, there are times he says the right things. Yeah, Clive Lewis is another one of the few good Labour MPs as well. Yes, Rosemary. Whether the US touches rots or whether Russian touches rots, and Parliament has them both. Definitely, indeed, there's definitely rot here. Definitely rot here, indeed. I know nobody likes her, but we're going to hear from her anyway, guys. Kemi Baganotte was asked about the Peter Mandelson case. Obviously, we know where she's going to pin it all, and she pins it all on the Prime Minister here.
So for so long, the Prime Minister has tried to make this about Peter Mandelson's lies. What this shows is that it is Keir Starmer himself who has lied repeatedly since the very start to the whole country about what he knew, when and how. And these files have exposed the fact that the Prime Minister has not been honest with the country or with the Commons about the extent to which he knew about this relationship.
One of the things that we've seen here is that Mandelson asked for more than £500,000 as a payoff after his sacking. He received £75,000, much less, but still that much taxpayer money. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that this is yet another indictment of Keir Starmer's judgment. He wants to make this all about Peter Mandelson asking for money. The fact is, he wouldn't have been paying out that severance package if he hadn't appointed him in the first place.
And she's absolutely right. I hate saying when she's right, but she's absolutely right here, is that we would not be in this situation if he hadn't been appointed in the first place. And the worst part is, right, the worst part of all of this is that the previous ambassador was a very, very good one. She was very well connected within America. She was very highly respected in America. So there was no reason to change ambassador. This was all done for political means. Even though the current ambassador, she was very good at her job. She'd been in the role for a very long time. And they changed it. All to try and get PT in, to try and woo Trump and whatnot.
The vetting that we have now seen, the documents that we have now seen, have shown that the Prime Minister should never have made this decision. He has not been honest with the country. He's not been honest with Parliament about what he knew. Now he's complaining about the severance package, but the fact is he's the one who signed it off in the first place.
So is this a resigning matter?
Well, I think that it is, but we can't make him resign. But
presumably your message to him is, yes, you need to resign.
The only people who can fix this are Labour backbenchers. They can see that Keir Starmer has lied repeatedly about what he knew and when. He's tried to make this all about Peter Mandelson. This is about his judgment, and they should consider whether this is someone who is fit to run our country. He did it again at PMQs today. He says things that are simply not true to try to get himself out of a hole. All of this mess is of his own making. So
this whole Peter Mandelson thing is a mess of his own making, because he ultimately made the decision. He could have said no to Morgan McSweeney. He could have said no to those who were influencing him. He was well aware of the risks by putting him on board. And they would come back to bite him, and they did. And he bit him back really, really badly there. But by the way, that doesn't mean we're not letting her off the hook. Yeah, I'm definitely not letting her off the hook here. Now, a while ago here, Jeremy Corbyn spoke about Peter Mandelson again.
People get dazzled by the aura of Mandelson, his connections, his apparent success, and the apparently very lavish lifestyle he's able to lead. And that comes from all the business interests and contacts that he's built up. Mm-hmm. And so Starmer now says he was lied to by Mandelson. Well, I don't know what went on in the meeting between them. Maybe one day we'll all be told. But if Starmer was not aware of Mandelson's activities and behavior, then he should have been, and he should have been looking into it and should have been serious about it, because the damage it's done to Starmer, the damage it's done to his government is absolutely massive. And whilst he might have got away with a Parliamentary Labour Party meeting the other day, it's not over yet.
And this was quite a while ago when he was under the cosh and survived as well. He was under the cosh and he got away with it, essentially. He got away with it. But Kemi Badenoch, she thought she got away with it at PMQs, guys, and we mentioned it that she was lying here. She was lying at Prime Minister's questions. And I'm gonna prove it to you. And thank you, Implausible Blog, as always, for your wonderful work. Do check out his YouTube channel as well as following him on Twitter if you have it as well. And here is Kemi Badenoch being completely dismantled. Here on the left, she says, as we saw on Prime Minister's Questions live stream, I've never criticised our armed forces. And on the right, Kemi Badenoch criticises our armed forces, saying they're just hanging around.
Mr. Speaker, I have never criticised our armed forces. What else are our jets doing, just hanging around there?
I'll just pick up on a phrase you used a moment ago. You said that what are our jets, British jets, RAF jets, doing there at the moment? You just said they're just hanging around. Now, the evidence we have from the British government, from the British military, is that they have been involved in shooting down missiles and drones. Mm-hmm. You just said, what are they doing there? They're just hanging around.
We know that
you mentioned before about the issue of all of us, to a degree, not having operational knowledge, because that's the way these things work. But you have characterised what is already happening by the British military, by the RAF, as just hanging around.
What I've said is that they are catching arrows. They need to get the Archer.
You used the phrase catching arrows. Yes. What they're actually doing is shooting down drones, which will cause damage, and they're shooting down missiles that are heading to the Middle East.
Mr. Speaker, I have never criticised our armed forces.
Now, we talk about Keir Starmer wanting to be sacked. I said in a video not too long ago, she deserves to be sacked for insulting our armed forces. And once again, here's proof of it. That clip right there is proof that she is not fit to be Prime Minister. And Keir Starmer was right at PMQs to say she should never be anywhere near the levers of power. This woman does not in any way, shape or form give two fucks about British lives. And for reference there, regardless of what you think about whether or not we should be having jets out in the Middle East here, but what they are doing is they are protecting lives. They are shooting down drones. They are shooting down missiles coming from Iran into Gulf states, into territory where we have over 100,000 British citizens are living in the Middle East right now. Many of their lives are at risk. And we have RAF jets, our own British fighters out there shooting down those drones. They're not fucking about. They're in the skies protecting lives is what they are doing. Yeah? So for someone who considers herself and wants to be a Prime Minister, maybe instead of claiming that they're messing about or hanging about, maybe you should fuck off out of politics and give a little bit more respect to these soldiers who are putting their lives on the line, for people out there in the Middle East. You know, have some fucking respect is my message to Kemi Baganoff. So when people ask why I think she should go, now you know why. And yeah, Keir Starmer does need to face the consequences for his actions, but people should not forget language that she has been using. And it's important, and I want to make sure people know that. I want people to know that. Another lying bastard is this person as well, which was highlighted at PMQs, and I wanted to remind people of it as well. Nigel Farage, the lying frog, who said that, who have stated on numerous occasions that they would cut your taxes. Well, you can see it literally there on the left-hand side. Reduce waste and cut your taxes. And here he is on the right-hand side saying, I never said we cut taxes.
On the politics of it, your leaflets at last year's local elections promised to reduce waste and cut your taxes. Most of the councils that you took control of are putting council tax up, including Kent, 3.99%.
So across the country, we're putting up council tax less than the other parties. And by the way, I never said we cut. I never said we cut.
Leaflets.
I've got another video that proves wrong on that, by the way. And literally, there it is. It says it right there.
Said cut your taxes.
Well, which means don't charge the maximum of 4.99%.
Most people would think that would be cutting your taxes.
Never once in the country ever did I say we would cut council tax.
Was it a mistake to put it on your leaflet?
I never put it on my leaflets.
You did?
You're an idiot! You're treating us like a bunch of fucking idiots. Honestly.
It said reduce waste and cut your taxes. Those were the words.
Nothing with my name ever went on that.
Literally, your face is right there. Point blank range. Right there. 139,000 people have seen this video. Point blank.
That was on a Reform UK leaflet in Kent.
Nothing with my name ever went on that.
So no such claims will appear on your leaflets this year then?
We did not say we would cut tax.
Reduce waste and cut your taxes. That was on a Reform UK leaflet in Kent.
Well, cutting taxes could mean not putting them up as much, I suppose, but I never promised cut some council tax.
You're right. You never said it, right? You never said it, you fucking liar.
Never once did I say we'd cut council tax.
Damn!
You've got to cut taxes.
Cut taxes.
Lower taxes.
We will cut taxes. We can do better for council taxpayers. Never once in the campaign did I say we'd do that.
Warwickshire Reform Party leaflet said we will cut your taxes. The Worcestershire Party leaflet said we will reduce waste and cut your taxes. That sounds like promises to cut taxes to me.
We will cut taxes. We will cut taxes. I knew it would be impossible given how tough the finances were.
At the local level, which is where indeed local elections take place, the leaflet said we will cut your taxes.
When I say something, I keep my word. Worcestershire's a total basket case. You know that. I know that.
He thinks you're an idiot. If you're a Reform voter watching this, he thinks you're a fucking idiot. So the question you have to ask yourself is, are you a fucking idiot? Answers on a postcard. And if you believe to not be a fucking idiot, then you're not going to vote Reform, are you? Anyways, had to get that off my chest because of everything that's going on. It's just, it's infuriating, guys. It's infuriating. It's over there, points. He was so impressed. He bought the company, says Billy Kershaw. Not putting taxes up as much. I know, it's so gullible. Yeah, it's just so gullible. If she had complained about the Mandelson files being delayed after PMQs, she could have scored. Yeah, absolutely right. She should have pointed that out. She could have pointed that out at PMQs, but she decided to keep going on about fuel duty, which doesn't make any fucking sense because it's not something that Keir Starmer is going to tell. Plus, we don't know what's going to happen with the Iran war. So it was just a complete total waste of time. For me, like, it was one of the worst PMQs for Kemi Baganoff. She's had some bad ones. That was probably the worst one out of them all. Probably the worst. Speaking of the Iran war, guys. So I'm going to speed up this clip because this one's quite a long one here, but it is very important indeed. So this is the Iran's UN ambassador here. He's going to speak about, obviously, what's happened so far. And you can literally see from the tweet from Implausible Blog. Once again, fantastic work from Implausible Blog here. 1,300 civilians killed. 9,669 civilian sites have been destroyed. 32 medical facilities. 65 schools. 13 Red Cross buildings. Fuel strike causing toxic rain over Tehran. Airport and aircraft damaged or destroyed. Freshwater desalination plant destroyed. How is the destruction of civilian infrastructure helping the Iranian people? You tell me.
They are deliberately and discriminately targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure across my country. They show no respect for international law and no restraint in committing these crimes. Densely populated residential area and critical civilian infrastructure are deliberately targeted. So far, these horrific crimes have resulted in the martyrdom of more than 1,300 civilians.
Look, and yes, these are coming from the Iran, and yes, you can dispute the figures, and you can say things about this Iranian regime, which I am not a fan of in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure I'm not a fan of it as much as many of you guys are in the chat, rightfully so. However, what is the justification for the United States and for Israel for targeting civilian infrastructure, for targeting schools, for targeting medical facilities, to trying to literally bring, like, you want it to bring an uprising of some sorts to Iran? Did you honestly think that by targeting a school, which we are pretty confident, it's not 100% confirmed, but we're 90% confident, that a Tomahawk missile, which only one country in the world that is using them, and that is the United States of America, hit a school, killing over 160 or so people, many of them children, schoolgirls, and they still haven't taken responsibility and ownership for what happened that day. Do you honestly think you take us for a bunch of fucking fools? Our relationship, every single country on this planet, the relationship was already damaged when Trump came into office. It's even been further eroded by this very war, and this plays into the hands of some of the most rich, the most wealthy, and most powerful people on the planet: the oligarchs, the private business ventures, people with connections to dark people like Vladimir Putin, because they want chaos, division, and destabilization. This war greatly benefits Vladimir Putin, which also will help in his war against Ukraine. This just has the ripple effects of this war. It just holds no bounds whatsoever here. Stephen Morn, good morning to you over in New Zealand. I hope you have a wonderful day, my friend. Thank you so much for the 10 gifted memberships. That's very, very kind of you. 10 memberships. Wow. Thank you so much to Rowan Anderson, Jims Peck, Husky Boy, Mithril, Bodie Bop, Garrett Farrell, Graham Politics. Oh, I know that guy. Jim Shock and Michael 1988. They have all been gifted memberships there by Steve. Thank you so much for that. It's very, very generous of you. Thank you so much for the generosity there, my friend. And I hope you are doing well there. Thank you so much for that. Guys, there is a super chat goal. If you guys want to help me reach that goal as well, it would also be greatly appreciated if anyone wants to. Your message will guarantee to be read out as well. Let's continue to hear from the ambassador.
They have also destroyed 9,669 civilian sites, including 7,943 residential homes, 1,617 commercial and service centers, 32 medical and pharmaceutical facilities, 65 schools and educational institutions, 13 Red Cross buildings, and several energy supply facilities. These figures continue to rise every day as the United States and Israel carry out continuous military attacks and war crimes across cities throughout Iran.
It's also, again, worth reminding, because the Western media will not remind you of this, is that it's Israel and America struck first, and Iran simply retaliated because they were the ones who were struck first, and they killed their supreme leader as well.
On the night of the 7th March, aggressor aircraft launched heavy strike on fuel storage facilities in Tehran and other cities. This attack released large quantities of hazardous and toxic pollutant into the atmosphere. According to the Iranian Red Crescent Society, the explosion caused severe air pollution and serious health risk for civilians, especially children, women, and elderly.
Unfortunately, I don't have the footage here, but I remember watching a video from Vosh's channel, and he highlighted a CNN reporter in Tehran where literally oil was raining in the skies of Tehran. And you could see it on the floor, you could see it on the walls when he was standing on the roof of a building. You could literally see the rain of oil spilling from the sky onto the floor. And this is all because of the United States. That actually happened. It's not just his word. A Western reporter from CNN in Tehran was there and actually was witnessing it.
And those with critical health condition. Rainfall on the morning of the 8th March further spread the pollutants through highly acidic precipitation, increasing the risk of the respiratory harm and environmental contamination. Medical centers in Tehran have been placed on high alert. The residents have been advised to remain indoors. This heinous attack also violates international environmental obligations, including those under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Convention on Biological Diversity. In the early morning of 7th March, Mehrabad Airport in Tehran came under heavy attack. Several civilian aircraft and airport facilities were destroyed or severely damaged. On the same day, the United States deliberately targeted a freshwater desalination plant on Gesh Island on Hormozgan province. As a result, water supplies to 30 villages were disrupted, putting thousands of civilians at serious risk.
This is the intention, obviously, and we know that there's a huge water crisis taking place in the country, and their intention is to starve them out by taking out one of their desalination plants. And it's absolutely disgusting. And again, regardless of how you feel about the government and the regime, it's innocent people are suffering as a direct consequences of these actions.
Meanwhile, the President of the United States have been threatened complete destruction and certain death for areas and groups of the people that had not previously been targeted. Yesterday, the President of the United States openly expressed pride in the destruction of civilian infrastructure, Iran's navy, and killing of Iranian sailors. Their intention is clear: to terrorize.
It's also worth reminding people as well is that a oil tanker was struck in Sri Lanka last week off the coast of Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean, and it was no threat whatsoever to the United States, but they still targeted the tanker anyway, and the civilians were left for themselves. They weren't even rescued by the United States when they did such a disgusting and terrible thing as well. That's also worth reminding people.
Civilians, massacre innocent people, and cause maximum destruction and suffering.
Absolutely. Again, I'm not in support in any way, shape, or form of Iran, but it's also worth highlighting this as well. It's obscene and total war against humanity, says Rosemary. Jao says, I have no love for the regime of the Ayatollahs, but this is criminal behavior by the US and Israel. It is a crime. Yeah, it is a crime. What's also a crime is, again, we have to remind ourselves as well, is that international law has been broken every single day on numerous times by Israel, and no accountability has been brought to them by what they've done in Lebanon, what they've done in Gaza, what they have done in the West Bank, what they've been doing in countless areas with some of their strikes. They have not been whatsoever held to any kind of account. And it's worth reminding us of that as well. US Senator Richard Burmell, after leaving an intelligence briefing. This just shows just how out of depth the Trump administration are when it comes to this stuff.
I emerged from this briefing as dissatisfied and angry, frankly, as I have from any past briefing in my 15 years in the Senate. I am left with more questions than answers, especially about the cost of the war. My questions have been unanswered, and I will demand answers because the American people deserve to know. And I guess I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here. And there is also, as disturbingly as anything else, the specter of active Russian aid to Iran, putting in danger American lives. Literally, Russia seems to be aiding our enemy actively and intensively with intelligence and perhaps with other means. And China also may be assisting Iran. So the American people deserve to know much more than this administration has told them about the cost of the war, the danger to our sons and daughters in uniform, and the potential for further escalation and widening of this war, a war of choice made by this president, not chosen by the American people, with potentially huge consequences to American lives.
And the damage for the global economy as well. This guy is a Republican. I don't know that answer, actually. If someone could just Google his name just for namesake. But regardless of whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, doesn't change the fact that this war was done without Congress's approval, without Senate's approval, without the American people's approval. This was all. This is not the same as Iraq, as we mentioned last week when we talked about this. Because the difference between this and Iraq is that at least they got approval. They planned this. This was planned well in advance. Whereas this, they just kind of, Israel basically said, "We're going in, and are you joining us or not?" And basically, America went on board with them, whether they liked it or not. Which is and that was the significance there, without the fact that they didn't get approval from the American public or from Congress whatsoever. The US and Israel have not signed the international agreement to obey the decisions of the international courts, and that tells me all I need to know about them. No, because they do not, like Donald Trump does not give two shits about international law, international rule base whatsoever, and that rule base has already been undermined numerous times, but since he came into his second term in office, as we are well aware of. Roger Devine, good evening to you. Hope you are doing well. Before I go to that one, where is it? Where's the clip? Yeah, this one. I'll come to those other clips in just a moment, but I just want to share this one because it relates to it here.
I just came from a 2-hour closed-door classified briefing on the war. It just confirmed to me it's totally incoherent. We are not going to be able to achieve any of our stated objectives. But I mention it because it's another closed-door briefing. We have still not yet heard a full explanation as to why this is necessary. We still have had no hearings in front of Congress that the public can see, and I think that's pretty simple. Because if the president did what the Constitution says, come to Congress to get authorization for this war, he wouldn't get it. Because the American people would demand that their member of Congress, their senator, whether they be a Republican or Democrat, vote no, because this is a disaster of epic proportions. It's already getting Americans killed. It's driving up prices here at home. Harder line leadership, more antithetical to U.S. interests, are strengthening inside Iran. And there's really no way that we're going to be able to destroy their nuclear program because most of it is buried underground unless we mount a ground invasion, which would be even more disastrous and more unpopular. This has just been a debacle, a 10-day debacle. And we're going to use whatever leverage we have in the Senate to try to prompt those hearings, to try to prompt that vote, and to get this administration to start paying attention to the Constitution.
Which they're not going to be paying attention to it as much as it infuriates me. That way, Stephen Banker, I appreciate you coming in nonetheless. So thank you so much for popping in there. You have a good day tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming. I do appreciate that there. Richard Baltimore, 80 years old, Democrat, according to Giggle. Or I'll say that's Google. Thank you for that, Billy, for reference there. Thank you, Mr. E, for gifting a membership there to Timberlism3675, been gifted a membership there. Thank you so much, Mr. E. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much for gifting that membership. Very generous of you. Appreciate that. Yes, congratulations to all the new members tonight. I really appreciate that. So I just want to go down to this one here because this kind of sums up. This kind of just sums up Donald Trump in a nutshell, really. The way this is put, it's just like this is This is typical Donald Trump, mindset here.
So if you're looking for an exit, what's your exit strategy if you're Trump? Well, one of the things that's really interesting about Trump is he just makes stuff up. So what he can do is he can say, I've made a deal. It's the best deal ever. There's never been a better deal. I've made the most incredible deal the world has ever seen. It's really special. You're going to love it. We're going to win. We're going to win like you've never won before. And I'm getting oil concessions from Iran. And we're going to send everybody in except for ExxonMobil because they made me very angry when they pushed back on the Venezuela thing. And so I'm going to punish them for all eternity because I hate them. And then he's going to say, and we're done. And the war's over. And the United States will just simply stop attacking Iran. And it doesn't matter if the Islamic Republic is intact or not. For his supporters, he got a win. And they're going to go, he's a genius. He got all this oil for us. And then not a single drop of oil need ever leave Iran for the United States. Not a single U.S. oil company need ever set foot in Iran. The Iranian government can even come out and go, no such deal was made. And it won't matter. That's the world we live in. It just won't matter. So
Yeah, and that's the truth. The people will believe Donald Trump, whatever he says, even if it's bollocks. There are still Americans who are thick enough, who are dumb enough, who are stupid enough to believe that, despite the fact that the evidence is literally right in their bloody faces of what's going on. And until it affects them on a personal level, they won't start kicking off. And I have seen some Republicans, some Trumpians getting mad about the petrol prices, which is good. And I mean that because it shows them, hey, he promised to bring everything down and he's not bringing them down. Excuse me. So it's a good sign that some are getting broken through there. I think the water went down the wrong hole here. Oh dear. So yeah, that's not very good here. Joe, why did you back him in the first place? I really you're one of the most influential guys in the United States of America. You have one of the most you have so many people who watch your podcast. You have so many people who value your views, and now he says this.
It just seems so insane based on what he ran on. I mean, this is why a lot of people feel betrayed, right? He ran on no more wars and these stupid, senseless wars, and then we have one that we can't even really clearly define why we did it.
Well, we know why he did it, because Israel said so. That's what it is. Israel said, we're going in, whether you like it or not, and Donald Trump said, okay. And that was it. That was literally it. Now, I'm not a fan of this man, and I know you guys are not a fan of this man for lots and lots of reasons. However, I will give the man credit where he's due here, because I thought this here, a reminder of just how devastating what happened in Iran with regards to this. I don't know how true some of the numbers are brought up by him. I will say some of the numbers that he's brought up, I'm just take with a bit of a pinch of salt. But he's absolutely right to point out this atrocity that occurred.
It is the biggest single American atrocity since the Vietnam War. The massacre of 167 girls aged between 7 and 12 in their classrooms in an elementary school close to the Straits of Hormuz in an obscure and far-off part of Iran. For no reason that anyone can possibly fathom, all these children were massacred. All of them. Every single child in 5 of the classrooms was massacred. 60 others are wounded in hospital, many of them critical. Later in that first day of the war, 40 volleyball players, 3 squads of volleyball players, all female, were massacred in a single airstrike. I'm probably telling you that piece of news for the first time, but it's quite possible that you don't even know about the slaughter of the schoolgirls. It is the biggest single slaughter of girls in the recorded history of the world.
I'm more likely to dispute that because there have been bigger atrocities taking place on the continent of Africa. So to say that this is the biggest atrocity in the world, I don't get me wrong, this is up there with one of the biggest atrocities. But to say it's one of the biggest ever in history, I think that's a bit far-fetched, considering some of the atrocities, like for Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide, for example, was probably one of the biggest massacres of extermination of life. Not to mention the extermination of what Adolf Hitler did during World War II to Jews as well. I think that goes up there as well. But I'm just putting those comparisons out there because I think that context is worth adding there. That doesn't change the fact that what happened here is absolutely horrific and disgusting here. And again, while it's very credible that the United States is responsible for this, they have not come out and accepted responsibility for this as well, just for the reference.
Yet no one is talking about it. I don't want to labor this point, but just ponder for a second. If Russia had killed 167 Ukrainian schoolgirls, if Palestinians had killed 167 Israeli schoolgirls.
You can't argue this point. If Russia had done this into a Ukrainian school, everyone would be screaming about this. If Hamas had did this to an Israeli school, everyone would be blowing up about this. But because it was the United States on Iran, it's not played up as much. And it's all because of their nationality. He's not wrong.
If Iran had killed 167 schoolgirls, this would be the biggest journalistic story in the world and for years to come. It has died just as surely as the schoolgirls and the volleyball players have died. It was a sneak attack. It was in the middle of negotiations when a date had been set for tomorrow in Vienna, when the Iranian foreign minister was to travel to meet with Trump's son-in-law and his estate agent friend Steve Witkoff, two ingenues who know nothing whatsoever about the Muslim world, nothing whatsoever about diplomacy, nothing whatsoever about military matters, yet have inexplicably been made the chief negotiators of Donald J. Trump. The negotiations were set to continue on Monday, but on Saturday, what will forever be known as the Epstein War was launched.
Well, that's whether it's to do with Epstein. There's a lot of complications around it here as well. KGB just changed names. He is, he does. He is, pretty much a Russian asset because he never attacks Russia. That is true. He never attacks Russia, and he's not wrong though. Yeah. Hello there, Benjamin. Good to see you there. I've met him a few times when I was a proper activist around the first Gulf War. Never smiles. If he does, he sits facing the wall, says Mr. Heath. I do not support the US, I support Russia. Galloway follows the same type of KGB methods, and it does not work for me. I don't know about like the volleyball player and stuff. That's what he's stating there. I've not heard that anywhere else, but he's not wrong about what's happened here. You know, this is something that needs to be accounted for. Yes, exactly, Benjamin. Tucker Carlson is definitely one like that. Even though there are many things that I disagree with him on, there are times where he gives a lot of truth to what he talks about as well. Tucker Carlson is one of those. He's one of those mixed guys where, I think a good way to describe people like George Galloway, Tucker Carlson, Piers Morgan is like Marmite. Sometimes, they say things that you really, really absolutely hate and despise, and there are times where you will be on agreement with them as well. So they are definitely Marmite people, I think is the best way to describe them here. I don't like the narratives coming. What I don't like is when Western journalists speak to Iranian ministers and spokespersons. The way they come across, they feel like that they know better. And I did not like this reporter's interview towards the to the Iranian official, but at the end of the day, he's got the interview here. So he asks here, the journalist, how much longer can you continue the war? We are ready for a long war. We have enough missiles and weapons for 10 years, he said. Journalist shocked and went silent, and then he said, we decide when the war ends, not Trump.
Iran has a new supreme leader. What does that mean for your military effort and the confrontation with the United States and Israel?
That means the system is quite functioning.
So the United States says it's drastically degraded the Iranian military, the capabilities as far as missiles is concerned, drones is concerned. How much longer can you do this?
That is one of the false narratives that the United States government is producing. Iranian military is quite strong, as you see, because they have the motivation, they have the arms that they need, which are produced in Iran. As a matter of fact, we are not dependent on any other country for weapons and arms.
So your side is ready for a long war if the United States and Israel choose that. Do you consider this an existential threat to the Islamic Republic?
It is an existential threat to the Islamic Republic, and
it's a stupid question to say that when they were the ones who were struck first. Again, regardless of how you feel about the regime, they were attacked first by Israel and then the US.
Therefore, we have to stay with full might, as we are doing now.
Is your side seeking, or will you seek, a ceasefire with the United States at this point in time, and with Israel?
I don't see any room for diplomacy anymore, because Donald Trump had been deceiving others and not keeping with his promises. And we experienced it in 2 times of negotiations, that while we were engaged in negotiation, they struck us.
How?
And he's absolutely right to say this, and the Iranian regime have every right, to say, no, we're not going to negotiate with you. Why should we negotiate with you? We're going to do everything we can to make your lives to live in hell, and rightfully so. And we don't care about the consequences here, because at this point, you're not prepared. Because if we let off now, you're just going to do it again. You lied to us in our agreements. You lied to us about means. We made more concessions to you than we ever did to Barack Obama, and yet you still went with Israel, still went to decide to attack us, knowingly that we didn't have any weapons of mass destruction, that we don't have nuclear weapons. But with their new supreme leader, and given how the public in Iran feels, the majority of the public feel in Iran, given how the regime feels, even more than ever about the United States and Israel, there's even more incentive than ever before for them to build nuclear weapons. More than ever before. And by the way, if they had a nuclear weapon, none of this would be happening. Because you know why? Because you'd be scared of it. There's a reason why nobody goes after Pakistan, because guess what? They got a nuclear weapon. There's a reason why nobody goes after North Korea, because guess what? They got nuclear weapons. As much as I hate nuclear weapons, they do protect nations. They stop nations from being targeted. And that is the sad reality of it here. I hate saying that, but it is true.
How does all of this end then? If you say right now there's no room for negotiation, President Trump says he wants complete surrender, what does that lead to?
There's no room unless the economic pressure would be built up to the extent that other countries would intervene to guarantee this termination of aggression of Americans and Israelis against Iran.
So what he's basically what he's implying is that we need to choke the global economy, which means we need to it's not as much as we want to hurt America and Israel, we have to the allies, we have to destabilize the world. We have to hurt everyone. That includes us, that includes France, that includes Western leaders, that includes Canada, Australia, most Western nations. They have to suffer. And by them being forced to suffer, it forces them to pile pressure on the United States to stop the war and to stop the war even more. We want to get to the point where the United States and Israel are begging to get out of this conflict. They want to get to that point, but even then, Iran are not gonna turn the tide here. No votes since 1987. Then they deserve all they got there. Yes, this regime, don't get me wrong, like I've said, the regime and what they have done in there have been absolutely atrocious, and they must face, and they deserve to face the consequences for that. Absolutely, Scratch. No one's arguing that, but it's also worth reminding us that, we are in this situation because of Israel and the United States, not because of Iran. And It's really important to understand that context. They absolutely agree. I don't like this regime and I don't like the way they run things. Of course, they killed innocent people. Not disputing that. Nobody in the chat's arguing that. Doesn't change the fact, that you can go in there and just start bombing them out of the blue, especially when you're supposed to be having diplomacy with them as well.
Finally, what is your message to President Trump as we sit here, as the war is going on?
That means that what is important for us is the end of this game. And we are ready to continue that game.
The end of this game, you mean how this war will end?
Yeah, the end of the game would be the time that American and Israelis would come to this understanding that this strategy is not working. And they have to stop their aggressions against Iranians.
And so one of the arguments I've heard about this war is that this would not have happened under Kamala Harris, or that we would have gone to war. We would have gone to a war with Iran even under Kamala Harris. I think, in all seriousness, if we had gone to war, if the United States had gone to war under Kamala Harris, it would not have been under these circumstances. It would be under much different circumstances, and it would not have been the case of as much as Kamala Harris would not be as susceptible to Israel's whims. I don't accept this narrative that what's happened so far would have definitely happened under Donald Trump. I think it would have been very different circumstances, and you probably would have had more people would have more Western nations would probably have supported the US if they went to war in Iran in a different way there. So when I vote, I assume my responsibility, says Jow. Yeah, I'm investing in seaweed harvesting, says Mr. E there. There are clean new nuclear weapons and says Billy Kershaw. Are you saying they have nuclear weapons? I don't know there. Biden allowed Israel to do what they like, and I'm not sure this could not happen with Kamala. No, because Kamala Harris has a brain. You know, she would have had responsible people around her as well. You know, I didn't want a Kamala Harris. You know, I wanted Kamala Harris to. I wasn't a fan of Kamala Harris at all, but I certainly would have picked her over Joe Biden. But you know, obviously we are where we are. I thought this is a very interesting clip from some of the stuff we've got as well here. I wanted to share this here as well. I think I might go to the Al Jazeera clip next as well, because, like I said, we do have a lot to cover here. So this is a former CIA analyst, Larry Johnson here. It's funny how a former CIA agent start to appear when there's a conflict taking place, guys. It's almost like it's intentional from the Central Intelligence Agency.
What is really going on?
Well, the American people are being lied to by their own government about what's transpiring. Iran has destroyed 5 radars. There are 2 types. One's called an AN-TPY, and the other's an AN-FPS. One of them costs $500 million, and there are 2. The other 2 each cost $1 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, these are big-time radars. They were located at our military base in Al Udeid, at the naval base in Bahrain, all of which have been bombed, attacked. The Bahrain facility is essentially destroyed. And those radars were critical for our whole air defense system, because they would provide an immediate warning that, oh, there's been a missile launch. It's going on this trajectory. This is where you need to be prepared to engage it. And it was tied into what was called a terrain high altitude area defense weapon, THAAD, THAAD. Well, we have like a total of 10 THAAD batteries in the world. Iran has destroyed 3 of those. 30% of our total number of THAADs in the world, Iran's destroyed 3 of those in this last week. They've destroyed about $4 billion worth of radars in a week. And they've been regularly hitting Israel, despite our claims that we've blown up their launchers. We continue to think that we can solve these problems with force instead of diplomacy.
Yeah. And it's worth pointing out as well, very little footage is coming out of Israel from the strikes that Iran is doing. Very little footage is coming out, and it's not because, and it's not the same as Gaza. The difference here is that they don't want to paint a picture of them being looking like they're weak. They're trying to suppress media out strikes from Iran going into Israel. They don't want to be shown to be seen weak. There is some mix. It's hard to verify some strikes, but I do have some footage if we get a chance to have a look at it. Some strikes from Iran into Israel there as well. We saw that clip already. Don't think that clip's worth there. I did put that clip here, but yeah, this kind of adds on to it. This is a very good piece from a very good 3-minute clip here from Al Jazeera about how much the war in Iran is costing the United States here as well.
If you look at just the first 100 hours of the war on Iran, the U.S. spent $3.7 billion. That's more than what most countries spent on their entire militaries in 2024. Gone in 4 days, less than 5% of it approved by Congress. Here's how much a day of war on Iran costs the U.S. The Center for Strategic and International Studies broke down the bill. Item 1. Operations, keeping more than 200 fighter jets in the air, a fleet of warships at sea, and artillery on the ground. About $196 million. Most of it was already budgeted. The real cost was what this war machine fired. Item 2, munitions. Over 2,600 guided weapons launched in 100 hours. Missiles, precision bombs, drones, replacing them cost $3.1 billion. Item 3, things that broke. 3 F-15 jets destroyed by friendly fire in Kuwait. The bill came in at $359 million. Add it all up, and it's $3.7 billion for 4 days of war. At the beginning of the campaign, the most expensive weapons went first. On day 1, Iranian air defenses could destroy almost anything that got close. So the U.S. struck from a distance with Tomahawk cruise missiles at $3.6 million apiece. By day 4, with Iranian defenses degraded, bombers dropped $80,000 smart bombs. But the most expensive part of this war isn't the bombing, it's stopping what Iran fires back. A Shahed drone costs Iran up to $50,000. Shooting one down can cost 100 times more. In 4 days, Iran launched 500 ballistic missiles and 2,000 drones, and they don't necessarily need to hit anything. Every launch depletes the other side's air defense stockpile. Gulf allies helped absorb the blow. They intercepted more than 1,800 missiles and drones. So who pays for all this, and how? Of the $3.7 billion, only $178 million was in the Pentagon's budget. Everything else, no funding source. The Trump administration is running this war on a military credit card, and Congress hasn't seen the bill yet. When it arrives, there are 3 ways to pay. 1, a supplemental spending bill. Trump asks Congress for emergency money, the way George W. Bush did after Iraq and Afghanistan. But every vote on funding becomes a vote on the war. 2, redirect part of the $150 billion from the first Trump reconciliation bill. But that money has already been promised elsewhere. 3, roll it into a future spending bill that may never pass. Today, every day of this war costs close to $1 billion. Some Republicans estimate it may even be double that. And 4 days cost about what it would to rebuild every single school destroyed in Gaza.
That's insane. That is fucking insane numbers. And you think about that amount of money. Like, I know, like, their budgets are much bigger in the US compared to here in the UK, but you just think about all this money being wasted. Like, just think about how much that money could be used to transform and change people's lives there. And I love this comparison here, where it says it costs $3.8 billion to rebuild the entire school system in Gaza, and it cost them $3.7 billion of 4 days of war. That contrast is fucking insane, absolutely insane. It boggles the mind. It really boggles the mind when I look at that number there, guys. It really, really does. I thought this was a very nice piece here as well. Professor Paul Rogers explains that war is not working. And it's true, war does not work as well. what are you guys saying in the chat? I've seen so much rot inside the US doing my channel that I think what is happening right there is just being accelerated by Trump. Yep. Oh, not so bad. Easter coming, a death rival ritual, Matt's Wars and Machine, says Scratcher there. US debt is trillions. Yeah, and it's gonna be bigger. Like you like imagine you telling the imagine telling the American public, yeah, you guys are gonna foot the bill for this war that you never voted for, that Congress never voted for. You guys are gonna foot the bill for it. Imagine telling them that. Just imagine having to tell them that.
We've had, was it 4 failed wars before this one? We've had Afghanistan, we've had Iraq, we've had the air war against ISIS 2014-18, which killed apparently 60,000 ISIS supporters, and of course we've had Libya. The 5th failed war, in my view, is already Gaza, and we're heading for a 6th. So the one obvious thing is war ain't working. I mean, I like that Quaker postcard, which simply says, if war is the answer, it's a stupid question. And that I think is true. It's also worth remembering, now this is slightly off beam, I know, but what we're also seeing is the rise of protests in countries like Britain, quite a lot of it non-violent, that have all the problems of basically Palestine action and the rest. But it's worth remembering that historically, non-violent direct action, and by non-violent I mean not violence against people, sometimes against property, non-violent direct action has been very significant in some of those positive changes in the world social order. To go right back to the suffragette movements in a number of countries, including Britain, look at the effect of Gandhi bringing about earlier on the process of decolonization. You look at the civil rights movement in the United States, and you look at the one that people forget, the huge public movements that came out in 1989 in particular, when essentially the Soviet system came apart. So you don't have to just go for the military. Now, I'm not a pacifist myself. I get closer to it the older I get. But at the same time, there are other ways forward. And certainly the very least that should happen is a serious review of how Britain looks at its security. Because that is very sadly missing at the present time. But it just reminds us that at a very difficult time, there are other ways forward. And I think, at times you get fairly near despair on this one. Now, I've heard me say before, if you work in this sort of period for any length of time on terrorism and the rest, you only have 3 choices. You're either alcoholic, suicidal, or optimistic. And, we got 7 grandchildren, and for heaven's sake, there is cause for optimism here and there, and one has to hang on to it. But at the same time, we're only going to make progress if we're realistic about the kind of mess we're in. And hopefully, there will be enough rethinking when this mess ends in some way, hopefully sooner than later, that we might start to rethink what we mean by security.
Well, unfortunately, we never learnt from the Iraq War, because if we had learnt from the Iraq War, we would not be in this fucking mess right now. And that is the grim reality of it. We haven't learnt from the Iraq War. That's just the staunch reality of it, guys. We just haven't. It's really, really infuriating here. It really, really is. So, guys, I want to show 1 or 2 more clips before we wrap up, because we have hit 9:30 here. But I wanted to show, first of all, I wanted to show you guys this tweet here. This is a list of all the Labour MPs who voted against, who voted to end the right to jury trials here. These are all the Labour MPs here, guys. And it's very important to remember that these are the MPs who basically said, fuck jurors, basically, screw the criminal justice system. All of these MPs, and it's worth looking down this list here. These are the 304 MPs who voted to end the right to jury trials. Now, it's worth bearing in mind there is more consultation. There's still a long way to go before it becomes law. The bill that they're bringing forward, but these are all the Labour MPs, and make sure you look at these names very clearly. You can see Heidi Alexander, one of the ministers there. There's plenty of Labour MPs here. I'm just going to scroll it down just a little bit here. Some of those names, Chris Bryant voted for it as well. There, which is a shame. There's times where I thought he was okay, but clearly not there. A bit further down, there's 300 of there. Angela Eagles there, I can see there, Chris Evans there as well, Anna Dix. These are all the Labour MPs who thought, you know what, yeah, let's change the criminal justice system. Let's get rid of the system that we have, that we rely on jurors. All these Labour MPs are the ones who voted for it. And of course, you had to see Shabima Mahmood at the bottom there. Even Kem Leadbitter there, disappointed in her voting for it as well. Very disappointed in that. And now I just want to take you to this incredibly powerful video. This was before that vote as well, guys. This was before that vote as well. Now it's 8 minutes long, but I do think it's worth sharing because it's very, very powerful indeed here. So MPs had an MP is sharing the harrowing account of a rape in the jury trial commons debate here.
I propose to put a 5-minute time limit on from after the next speaker. Charlotte Nichols.
Deputy Speaker. I've thought very long and hard about speaking today. I'll allow honourable and right honourable learned members from the legal profession to make the legal arguments better than I can, and those who rightly have procedural or rights-based concerns for defendants that I share to raise those. I trust those points will be satisfactorily covered. But I wanted to focus my remarks on a particular perspective that I feel has been too often ventriloquised in this debate, and I hope the House will be gentle with me in doing so. I have spoken before in this place about having PTSD as the result of being the victim of a crime, but I have never specified the nature of that crime, and in doing so, I am aware that I am waiving my right to anonymity and the personal consequences that come along with that. I care profoundly about rape victims facing intolerable delays for their day in court. I know only too well what that feels like, as after being raped at an event that I attended in my capacity as a Member of Parliament, I waited 1,088 days to go to court. Every single one of those days was agony, made worse by having a role in public life that meant that the mental health consequences of my trauma were played out in public, with the event that led to my eventual sectioning for my own safety still being something that I receive regular social media abuse from strangers about to this day. But here's the kicker. In this debate, experiences like mine feel like they've been weaponised and are being used for rhetorical misdirection for what this bill actually is. The violence against women and girls sector haven't had the opportunity to come together to discuss it, and the government's framing and narrative has been to pit survivors and defendants against each other in a way I think is deeply damaging. Yeah. We have been told that if we have concerns about this bill, it is because we have not been raped or because we don't care enough for rape victims. The opposite is true in my case. It is because I have been raped that I am as passionate as I am about what it means for a justice system to be truly victim focused. It is because I have endured every indignity that our broken criminal justice system could mete out that I care what kind of reform will actually deliver justice for survivors and victims of crime more widely. We promised in our manifesto specialist rape courts. This bill isn't that. The transition away from jury trials in certain cases might itself take up operational time, with changes to an already overstretched system entrenching issues and delays. The timeline for these changes to take effect is 28-29. We know what works, as it's already happening in a few key areas, including pioneering work in Liverpool and Preston Crown Courts in the North West. This is a bearing down on waiting lists that could be taking place in months, not years. Proven, meaningful and significant reductions in waiting times for complainants and defendants, rather than speculative, unevidenced reductions that the Institute for Government says could be as little as 1 to 2% and coming years down the track. It's worth saying the Bar Council believes that even that 1 to 2% reduction is wishful thinking, so we risk offering false hope to rape victims rather than real change. We know that juries are more diverse than the judiciary, and an unattended consequence of these changes could be that women from minoritised backgrounds are less likely to come forward, not more. Juries do not make perfect decisions, but neither do judges.
And I agree, and I think that I'm sorry to pause it because I really want to add the context here. This is significant. They want more judges to make the decisions, and their idea, the cabinet, the people making the decision about these changes to the laws, their idea and their mindset is that we will get things done faster. No, we will not. No, we will not. They think we will. I'm telling them we're not. And not only is this MP who is a victim of rape saying that, but even the experts in the criminal justice system, judges and barristers, have said on record that the proposed plans by David Lammy does not work. But they're still pushing through with it. And the question you should be asking yourself is, why?
An unintended consequence of measures which enabled pre-recorded evidence has meant significant slippage in case handling, which is where the most significant procedural delays are. A clear reprioritisation is needed here, alongside the expansion of recorders in Russo cases. The second thing to say is that this bill does little for when a rape victim actually comes to court. I still have almost as many nightmares about my experience in the witness stand as I do about my rape. The defence barrister, who had previously faced investigation after a witness took her own life following cross-examination in a different rape case, doesn't seem to have learnt much from that experience and went for me in a way that undermined all the progress I'd made in therapy and led me to blame myself for his eventual acquittal. We need far greater safeguards for those giving evidence, and actually we need a reframing of the fact that legally you're a witness in your own trial. It is wild to me that we're still arguing after many years about your right to a free transcript of your own trial, particularly as the recent move to allow access to sentencing remarks does nothing to help with closure for those whose cases sadly do not end up in a conviction.
The transcript was something I mentioned a few years ago. I mentioned covering a video with regards to transcripts and how they were not being made available to victims. And they basically said for victims, not just rape, but all cases, a lot of them, there were some significant cases where they were being given, but most cases they were basically turning around and they were saying to victims, you can have them, but you have to pay for them. You, the victim, had to pay for the fucking transcripts. When you're the fucking victim, you tell me how that makes sense.
I will give way.
I know firsthand the strength that she is showing in making this speech and why it matters that we are confident that what we bring forward actually will change this situation, that we will not go down rabbit holes and be distracted by changing juries, but we will ruthlessly focus on the victim's experience. I want to speak on behalf of everybody in this chamber in saying we are with her every step of the way and so damn proud of her today.
I thank my honourable friend. Despite the third thing to say is that closure for me began following a successful civil process following the acquittal. My rapist may not be considered to have met the criminal threshold for guilt beyond all reasonable doubt and is out there on the streets as a free man while I live with the life sentence of what he did to me. But what has been established at a civil standard of proof is what happened. It found that I had been raped and a compensation order was made that recognises me as the blameless victim of a violent crime. Despite the recommendations of the ICSA review, we are still nowhere on civil remedy, including movement on the Criminal Injuries Compensation Scheme reform, tariffs that have shamefully not been uprated with inflation since 2012 and which has no eligibility for non-contact sexual offences that can cause significant and lasting harm. Finally, the VORD sector has been underinvested in for such a significant period that the best things we can do to both drive down waiting times and improve the experience of victims requires money the Treasury remains unwilling to adequately cough up. I welcome the announcement of independent legal advisors, but the £6 million that sits alongside this is woefully inadequate. I could not have made it all the way to trial without my ISFA Jazz, whose support saved my life. But I had to wait 7 months to be allocated one, given how under-resourced this system is. That's not good enough. I have enormous respect for many of my frontbench colleagues, in particular the honourable members for Pontypridd and for Birmingham Yardley, but it feels from where I'm sitting that despite their best efforts and the publication of our groundbreaking VORG strategy, there is so much that we can be doing for rape victims that isn't the Lord Chancellor using them as a cudgel to drive through reforms that aren't directly relevant to them. As a starting point, Rape Crisis England and Wales have called for 5 key demands in their Living in Limbo report. Don't say that this bill helps deliver justice for rape victims until it actually materially does.
Absolutely brave. I really, really applaud Labour's Charlie Nicholas, guys. The MP's name is Charlie Nicholas, and I applaud her for having such bravery and courage to stand up and openly admit that she is a victim of rape, and that the person responsible is still walking the streets to this day because of the failure of the system. And for her to continue her duties as an MP after going through what she did, and I just cannot fathom whatsoever what has going through her mind. And but it is incredibly brave for her to do that, and I'm pleased that she is still with us. It is such a terrible ordeal that that she went through, and I will never know what that is like, because A, I'm not a woman and I've never experienced that in any way, shape or form, nor will I ever try to understand that, because again, like I've said, I don't know what that is like there, but it is incredibly powerful indeed. Even when it was in the EU, the UK's justice system was painfully slow. I know from my work that it would take the average twice almost all other EU countries except 2 to answer a simple request of judicial cooperation. In Portugal, the issue is with civil cases, but criminal law works 99% of the times very, very well. Well, one of the last, I can't obviously speak for before austerity what the criminal justice system was like, but we know that austerity, before even Brexit, austerity was playing a damaging role in our criminal justice system, because there was lots of cutbacks in our criminal justice system. We know that because they were cutting down cases, they were cutting down court cases. That was definitely happening in the 14 years of, well, the 5 years of coalition, as well as the time under the Conservatives as well. And when Labour came in, even in the run-up towards this, I remember covering a story a year ago, a year and a half, or maybe even 2 years ago, about how the criminal justice system had said that it would take some rape cases up to 5 years before they got heard. 5 years. And this woman here, she spoke saying it took over 1,000 days before she could finally have her day in court. So it sticks in my mind, that video that I covered a long time ago. I wish I knew the name of it so I could share it with you guys, but I remember covering it, and I remember it sticking in the back of my mind. And I mean this sincerely. I want it's so easy for me to say we need to put more money into things, and yes, it's always the answer is always putting more money in. But the thing is that this government is not going to open the purse strings, because they care about physical responsibility, when in fact physical responsibility is what there is no good talking about physical responsibility if we're not even being physically responsible with the very people we're supposed to be looking after, which they are not doing a very good job of. You know, it's all well and good balancing the budget and balancing the money, but that's never going to get better if people aren't going to get better. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have here. I know it's late, guys. I know it's late. But I want to share this last piece of last one here, guys, with you guys. Last one. I don't have any funny videos tonight, but I did want to share this last one with you guys because I think this is very, very important indeed. This is from Barry Gardner, the MP here. Since privatisation, water companies have taken more than £85 billion in dividends and pulled up more than £60 billion of debt. Yet all capital and operational costs are covered by bill payers. So why keep a privatised structure for a natural monopoly like water? And this really does, and this once again emphasises the Greens Party's position when it comes to nationalising our water companies. This is the last video. I know some people, I know it's late for some people, will be going to bed, so I do appreciate them. I appreciate people coming out. If anyone wants to leave any super chats before they go, it will also be greatly appreciated. But this is the last video I wanted to play for you guys, and I hope you guys listen to this one at least.
In the Water White Paper, the government states that it has secured £104 billion of private investment to transform our water infrastructure. Can you confirm, Secretary of State, where that money is coming from? That it's, Ofwat says it's coming from the 36% increase in customer bills, which will come over the next 5 years. Is that correct?
Well, it's complicated because it's about timing. So the money up front comes from the people who are invested in the water companies, but it is recovered over time. That's right.
Well, actually, analysis by the University of Greenwich found that in almost every year since privatisation, customers' bills directly covered the capital expenditure of the water companies, as well as the day-to-day operational expenditure. So when the government talks about securing 104 billion of private investment, actually that is money that has come from people's water bills.
I did answer the question. It's about a time frame. The money gets put in and then it is recovered over time.
Over the lifetime of an asset.
But you agree with the assessment that actually all of the investment in the capital expenditure and the day-to-day operational costs is met by the bills. So can you confirm that since privatisation, water companies have extracted £85 billion in dividends and have accumulated more than 60 billion in debt? So given that the Greenwich research is correct and that capital and operational costs have all been met by bill payers, what is the point of maintaining a privatised structure to what is a natural monopoly, namely water?
Well, I mean, if you'd like to nationalise the water industry, you need to work out which taxes you're going to put up or which areas of public spending you're going to choose not to spend money on, because obviously nationalising the whole thing would cost an enormous amount of money and take an enormous amount of time.
That's
going
not
through the
what the figures that have been produced actually suggest. And of course you haven't
Well, they
done...
are disputed figures, as you
know.
No,
Sorry, they're not. You can't dispute them because you haven't done any analysis of them, have you?
Yes, we have. Of
No,
the
you
cost
haven't.
Of, cost of
Sorry,
nationalisation.
there was the FOI by Professor Becky Mulby in January of this year. What analysis has your department undertaken to understand the comparative cost to the public of continuing with the current privatised model versus the cost of public ownership of the water industry, both during the remainder of PR24 and over the next 30 years? Your response: the government has no intention to nationalise and therefore has not assessed the ongoing costs of continuing with current privatised model versus the public ownership of the water industry. You've not actually done the math.
Well,
I would dispute that. Anyway.
That's your own words.
So we have published a note, which I'm happy to resend to the committee, on an assessment of the costs of nationalisation. So regulated capital value of the water sector is the closest proxy for the total value of the sector's debt and equity. That was estimated at £106.7 billion in 2025. If the sector were to be nationalised, the total cost of that nationalisation would reflect the cost of both purchasing the equity in the companies and the cost of assuming their existing debt liabilities. Now, that is a proxy because there are many uncertainties around that, but we have published a note on that, which I'd be happy to research.
Yes, but as you know, 3 of the water companies are publicly traded and their stock market valuation is considerably lower than their RCV. So actually, using the RCV model, you're inflating the price. And then, as you say, when you add the debt burden that those companies have, actually, they're not attractive prospects at all.
Boom. This is absolutely brilliant by Barry Gardner. He absolutely took these idiots to the cleaners, and proof that this system of water that we have, privatization of water, does not work, and he's proven it right there and then. And their false argument all the time about saying, oh, it'll cost a lot of money. Well, he's just proven that it's not. Thank you, Stephen Moran. You've been very generous. Thank you so much for the $10 New Zealand, my friend. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for the 10 gifted memberships earlier on the show. I do appreciate it. I know it's been a long show for us today. And thank you, Mr. E, for being a member for 12 months as well. Take care. Things are not going to get easy. Plan well. Well said, Mr. E. Absolutely. We do all need to plan well indeed. So, guys, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came along. Thank you, guys, for all your comments tonight. I really do appreciate. I'd love to say that I can go straight to bed. Unfortunately, I have work. I still have some wrestling work I need to do before I go to bed, unfortunately, which absolutely sucks, but it is what it is. Because I do make money from that as well, not as much as this, as my work here on YouTube. But as you guys know, I don't monetize my live stream, so I do appreciate people who do, whether it's super chats or gifted memberships. It really does make a big difference in supports me on here. So thank you for those who do. Obviously, if you can't financially support, don't feel bad about it at all, because I know things are going to get tougher out there as well. So the best way you can do to support me is what I always say at the end of the show, guys: hitting the like button, sharing across social media, leaving comments down below, subscribe if you're not already. Do check out the home tab, check out the short videos, check out, I've got some long videos, one dropped today, another drawn on two will be dropping tomorrow. Do check out those videos, share your thoughts on those videos down as well in the comments. I'll also be putting out posts as well, polling posts as well, so you guys can contribute to that. All that stuff helps boost the algorithm of this channel, so if you can do any of that stuff, guys, it is greatly appreciated indeed. So I'll be back live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for another Good Morning show, and myself and Wayne Angry Pagan with the Eco Flake show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock tomorrow night for reference. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.